No doubt about it. That was a gut punch. Learning that news. Craig Counsell, his first statement that he makes to the media at the press conference on Monday, comes out and stuns everybody with the Brandon Woodruff news. But should we have been stunned about that? I mean, we kind of led on to that last week, didn't we? That might be something up. We'll talk about that. But hey, the show has got to move on. There's still we've been working all season for this week, for months and months and months. The season's not over by any means. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, as you're driving in your car, maybe working on the lawn, maybe you got those kids screaming in back, maybe your wife, your girlfriend is screaming in your ear, whatever. You're watching me on video this morning as you're getting ready. The season's not over. The season is not over for the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm seeing people just throwing in the towel. No, still a lot to play for. Yes, this was a big loss. Brandon Woodruff. Of course it was, because they lean so heavily on their pitching staff. But they can overcome this. Now, it's not going to be easy. By any means, it's not going to be easy. You know that. But hey, tell me where we have not gone through this before. Starting with Raleigh Fingers in 1982 and working all the way up. Ben Sheets. I mean, look how many injuries we've had over the years in the postseason or going into the postseason when things were going just right. And man, you name it. Well, the Bucks avoided that with Giannis, but even he had the knee injury against the Atlanta Hawks, and it looked like it was going to be the end there. And I guess somewhat the injury kind of affected his season last year, I would say, in the postseason. But hey, what I'm trying to say is it seems like bad things happen to our sports teams. There's always obstacles to climb. There's always hurdles. It's always something. It is always something. And this is the something this year for the Milwaukee Brewers going into the postseason, the Brandon Woodruff injury. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. I'm my first year host of Locked On Brewers, longtime sportscaster here in the great state of Wisconsin. So I've seen all these stupid moments, these bad moments that our sports teams have had. Injuries, no injuries, fluky things that have happened, many things that have kept us from maybe advancing far in the playoffs, postseason, maybe winning championships. But this is just another one of them right here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the audio downloads. We're the number one Brewer podcast for a reason, because you great Brewer fans out there. You guys, just like me, follow this team. And yeah, we've worked so hard for this team. Watching them every day, spending our money, going out to the ballpark, parking. Going to be a couple of $100 night tonight at AmFam Field. Why? Because we love this team. We love the Milwaukee Brewers. This is our passion. Follow us on YouTube as well. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, and you're going to get all our episodes. And we drop every day right here on Locked On Brewers. And of course, follow me on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. I mentioned this last night, and I mentioned this Sunday night, and I mentioned this weeks before about the Brandon Woodruff injury. Yeah, I think after the Miami game, I was like, oh my God, I hope this isn't going to hurt us. And if you go back and watch Locked On videos, I asked our two guests recently, and I asked them, and I said, what do you think? Are you a little concerned about the velo being down? And at the time, Woodruff said, and this is after the Miami game, he said, no concern. There's no pain. And I said, we got to monitor this thing. And sure enough, he threw on the sideline the other day after his bullpen, and the pain was there. The velo was there the day before. Out in the bullpen, he was fine, no hurt. But then the next day when he was tossing, and the shoulder began to hurt. Now you worry about this for two things with Woodruff. Number one, I've said this before, he is such a great guy. Win or lose. And he got very emotional up there today And, I'd tell you if I thought the guy was a jerk. I would tell you if I thought, if that was phone. It's not, man. This guy, and I've said this before, Brandon Woodruff is a first-class guy. He is. You feel for this guy, and I don't want anybody to say, well, you know what, he's a millionaire, and I hate hearing that because he's a competitor. All right, he's a competitor, and he's a good guy to deal with. Loves the fans. He loves it in Milwaukee. He loves being a Milwaukee Brewer. And, man, I just hope he bounces back from this and it doesn't hurt his career because, man, he's got, whether it's here or somewhere else, he's got a bright future ahead of him. And I hope this isn't going to derail him like so many shoulder and arm injuries have derailed so many great pitchers over the years. Okay. But that's my number one thought with Brandon Woodruff. The playoffs aside, Brandon Woodruff, dealing with him since 2018. And I still remember him, of course, hitting that home run against the Dodgers. I'm talking about the guy like he's passed away. He's not gone away. He's just got an injury. But the bottom line is he was up there and upset, and I think he knows something's up. He couldn't be with his team. And you just got to feel for a guy like that. And I'm telling you, that guy is as genuine as it gets. He's been a joy to deal with. And, if anybody can bounce back, hopefully it's Brandon Woodruff to bounce back from this. Okay, secondly, the team. As far as the team is concerned, they rely so heavily on their pitching staff. This is what's got them the 92 wins, their pitching staff and their bullpen. It's not their offense. Sure, their offense has been fine from time to time, but they've leaned so heavily on their pitchers. And Woodruff came back in July, and he pitched like he had not missed a beat. He was ramped up quickly, made a couple appearances in the minors, and he was ready to go, and he put up some great numbers. You look at his September numbers, up until that last start, he was on pace to win Pitcher of the Month in the National League because you had Freddie and Corbin win it. You had Corbin in July, Freddie in August, and I thought Brandon Woodruff was on pace to do it in September, because his numbers were just so fantastic. The way he started off in his first 5 starts, he had an ERA of like 0.43. He was just amazing. So, yeah, they're going to really miss him because I've said all along, and you know this, the Brewers, when you go 1, 2, 3, the big 3 as they call them, Corbin Burnes, Woodruff, and Freddie Peralta, you get 2 quality starts out of there, you should win the game. Now, the Brewers have gone times where both of those guys, Burnes and Woodruff, have pitched back-to-back quality starts, and the Brewers had no wins to show for it. That's happened before. But going into the postseason, and especially against a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks in this wild card where they're pitching top-heavy, they got 2 great pitchers with Kelly and Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen. And this guy who's pitching, Fought. I've heard it pronounced like 15 different ways, but it's pronounced Fought. He's a guy who's, he's a guy who could be had. The Brewers got to get this game won. And we'll talk more about that a little bit, but, they got to take advantage of not going against Kelly or Zach Gallen in game 1. And if Burnes on the hill, you got to get game 1. You got to get game 1. But who's going to step up for the Brewers? We'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Some ideas I have, and I'm sure Craig Counsell has probably got a couple of ideas as well. This show is brought to you in part by the great folks at FanDuel. FanDuel has been a long-time sponsor of Locked On Brewers all season long. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $500 bet. I'm sorry, a $5 bet. $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in the action than right now. All the sports are kicking up. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, spreads, player props, over and unders, a whole lot more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Visit FanDuel.com. Money lines, props, everything you need. They're all there. It's going to help you out and get ready for Major League Baseball season, postseason. There's 4 games coming up on Tuesday at the FanDuel. Again, $200 in bonus bets. New customers get that guaranteed when you just place that first $5 bet. Very cool. I mean, you can't beat that one with a drum. Chuck Freeman here, Locked On Brewers with the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. When we return here after this break, we're going to talk more about this series, about Brandon Woodruff, some options, some ideas, and all that. We'll talk about that. First of all, download us. Thank you, all you everydayers, for joining me. Everydayers, people who watch this podcast, listen to this podcast regularly, Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads. Download us on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell. It's going to alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Brewers and Diamondbacks in a first of, well, hopefully 2-0 Milwaukee. But that first game, 6:08, coming up on Tuesday night. Get it on SiriusXM, the SXM app. Search Brewers. You get all 162 of Brewer baseball during the regular season and in postseason as well. SiriusXM, the SXM app, and they'll have, obviously, all the playoff games, all the wild card games, all the playoff games on SiriusXM. All right, we'll come right back after this. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host. Great to have you along here as we get ready for Wild Card Week, as I'm calling it. But I don't think I've heard anybody call it, but it's called Wild Card Week. Yeah, I was worried about Woodruff. I was. When he was throwing 90-91 against Miami a week ago Saturday night, he was hit hard, and I thought, man, there's something going on there. Your velo just doesn't drop like that. And I'm not a doctor and all that, but I just been around, seen this stuff happen, and it's been flying under the radar, but I've been talking about it here on Locked On Brewers. I'm not patting myself on the back for an injury, but I just suspected something was up with him. I was. So who are the options now? Well, Miley obviously is going to have to move up. Craig Counsell has not named his game 2 starter. So I would think Freddie's going to move up to game 2 and then Miley in game 3, I would guess. Or would they put Miley in game 2, save Freddie for game 3? And if you win it in 2, Freddie comes back in game 1 on Saturday against the Dodgers. And you got to think about these things. You got to look ahead. It's one game at a time. But you know what? Craig might do some goofy things like he did in 2018. He might have an opener. He might start a game with an opener. You never know. He may come out with Hauser as an opener in one of these games. You don't know, Colin Ray. Maybe Colin Ray pitches an inning or so. Maybe it's combined Hauser and Colin Ray. Maybe that's how they'll work one of the games. I don't know. But Counsell, him and his pitching coach Hook have got something going on, and they are thinking about what they're going to do. And I would not be surprised if I see some unconventional things from Craig Counsell to cover up for this hole with Brandon Woodruff out for, let's face it, you got that injury coming back. He just missed 4 months. And don't even try to be optimistic about the postseason. I mean, you got to go on thinking that he's not coming back. I mean, when they say the wild card, well, he's done for the wild card. Well, I would say if you got that type of injury, it's, again, not a doctor, but he just missed 5 months because of it. So Wade Miley is going to have to, and he's pitched in playoff games before, as we know. He was here in 2018. He's a nice safety valve to have. If Miley pitches on Wednesday, I'm good with that. Now, he's not Brandon Woodruff because Woodruff is Woody, and he's Cy Young caliber, elite. Corbin Burns, elite. Burns and Woody, elite. Freddie Peralta, if those two are 1A, Freddie Peralta, 1B. Even though Freddie led the team in strikeouts, I'm not putting him in Burns and Woodruff category. I think you all understand that. But Miley, as a fourth starter on this team. Solid pickup, good pickup by Matt Arnold in the offseason. And this is what he's for. And then again, don't count on Hauser, who I think is going to pitch long relief, but they could mix and match and do some things just to get by here. And they're going to have to keep doing that, keep working things over. That's what Counsell was doing in 2018. Just, the gears are turning, I'm sure, for all the possible combinations he could have. But man, yeah, going back, I'm just so disappointed in Brandon Woodruff. For Brandon Woodruff, I should say, not in him. For him because of the injury, and I know he really wanted to be a part of this. Did you see Bob Nightingale? Prior to this injury, Bob Nightingale from the Sporting News, he's covered baseball for a long time, noted sports writer. He picked the Brewers to win the World Series. Now, he based it because of the pitching, and, Woodruff, if you look at the piece that's online under Bob Nightingale, he leans heavily on the pitching staff as his reason why he thinks they're going to win the World Series. But hey, one game at a time. Let's win this series and then go on with the Dodgers coming up this weekend. The Brewers by 10 a.m. on Tuesday. So by the time, some of you might have watched this before or after 10 a.m., the Brewers will be making their announcement of the 26-man roster. So obviously we're cutting this one late Monday night, early Tuesday morning before that's out there. But I think Owen Miller's got to be on this roster. And I'm telling you, I just have a hunch with Owen Miller. I think sometimes you go with hunches with guys. And I think that's the guy. He's got to be like the 26th man on this team. And I think there's going to be a spot or two in this postseason for Owen Miller. Okay. Remember early in the season, there was Owen Miller fever in this state. The Ozaki kid. It's died off a little bit. He was sent down to the minors. Who would have guessed that? He needed to because he was in a bad slump. But I was still at Owen Miller on this team. I want him on my 26 man, just as a hunch. That's all we could do. You could do early in the season, just as a hunch. I want Owen Miller on this roster. All right. When we come back, we'll talk about the pitching matchups that are coming up for Tuesday. We'll talk about Tuesday's pitching matchups. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Bird Dogs. I'm telling you, these are such comfortable pants. And I wore my pants out golfing today. It was 81 degrees, but I wore the pants. The pants are so comfortable and stretchy. And, if you're maybe a little overweight, okay, they expand and they don't feel like they're squeezing your skin. They move with your skin. They're not squeezing your skin. And the shorts are the same way. They're the most comfortable pair of shorts you're going to wear. Go to Bird Dogs and check it out. I'm not even reading the advertising. I'm just talking from the heart on this. Bird Dogs make you look good. They do. They stretch, designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Anti-stink sweat wicking fabric, and they're functional for any occasion. Golf, dates, evening out, the pool, workouts, lounging, work, whatever. Wear those Bird Dogs around the house. Shorts, the long pants, they're very comfortable. Go to Bird Dogs right now, birddogs.com/lockedon XXX, or enter the promo code LOCKEDON XXX at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. Mine is sitting in my kitchen on my cupboard. I put the hot chocolate in there or the hot coffee in there before doing the episode. But you're going to want to go to Bird Dogs. The clothes are the reason. Their shorts, I'm telling you, their shorts are the most comfortable pair of shorts you're going to wear. Go to Bird Dogs. Again, birddogs.com/lockedon XXX, and you'll get that free Bird Dogs water bottle with your purchase. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Brewers taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks at Game 1 of the Wild Card Series. And that's caught up on SiriusXM, the SXM app. Search Brewers. You'll get all 162 of Brewers baseball every year right there on SiriusXM. 6:08 with that first pitch coming up on Tuesday. Thank you, all your everydayers, for checking us out on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell. We're going to be here after the game Tuesday night, a little bit later on, talking, recapping that game, your analysis. We'll take your tweets as well. A few hours after the game, we'll be here dropping the episode. And, of course, we'll be dropping it on our various platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it. We're on all those. We come back, we'll talk more about this game one coming up on Tuesday night. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, heading down the home stretch, cutting the show late Monday night, just in case some other news rolled around with the Milwaukee Brewers. Any other reports? Nothing. I have all the latest news here. And of course, you saw David Stearns being introduced as the new director of baseball, vice president or president of baseball operations with the Mets. The Mets have never had this job title before for somebody. And he is going to be second in command next to the owner there. He's ahead of the GM. So why have a GM when you have, why have a director of baseball operations and a GM? Aren't they the same job? GM makes player personnel decisions, director of player personnel, vice president of operations, president of operations. It's all in the title. The bottom line is David Stearns runs the personnel department for the New York Mets now. And that's what it is. And yeah, I was a little sad seeing him sitting at the desk with the New York Mets, but I just had a feeling that, it was only a matter of time before he was going to get another job. He was not going to be taking, a 10-year sabbatical. He was still technically, I guess, under contract with the Milwaukee Brewers, but how much he was doing with the team, I don't know. Okay, the pitchers for this game, Corbin Burns and 24-year-old Fouad. His name is Pfaadt or something like that, how it's spelled. He's made like 19 appearances, 18 of them starts. Has given up a lot of home run balls, really inconsistent. Like I said, this is a guy, not your classic game one starter that Arizona's throwing out there. Not your classic game one starter. Because usually your game one, you want to come out firing. But they had games they had to win this past weekend, and they didn't win. Arizona's coming in here cold. They lost 4 in a row. They got swept in a 3-game series by Houston. We all know about how it is, how it goes when your bats aren't working, and the bats aren't working for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Hopefully Burnsy can keep it going, keep silencing those bats, because that's what's going to have to happen. And you know what? We haven't even talked about the offense because we were talking so much about Woodruff on this episode and who's going to replace him. But the bats have got to come to play, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're either going to hit or you're not. There's no way. That's the way baseball is. There's no way to say, oh, go up there and play harder. Go try harder. No, baseball is not that way. It's not one of those games. Okay. Yeah. You don't know when they're going to go into a hitting funk, one of their classic freezes, or come out hitting. They got down like Saturday night, they got down 6-0, ended up come up tying the game. Still lost the game, but they got down 6-0. Now this Brewer team early in the season, they would get down early in games and they would call it night, 2-3 runs, and it'd be a ball game. This isn't that same Brewers team. They're actually showing more fight than they did earlier in the year. So getting down early is not a problem with these guys. I was asked on a national show today. I was on a show in Las Vegas, and they asked me about the additions of Canna and Santana. I said, Canada's probably been one of the best deadline pickups out there, maybe the best. And Carlos Santana, he's picked his spots where he's had some big moments. But I think this series is going to belong to Willy Adames. I think not only in this series, but I think Willy Adames is going to have a big postseason. So I'm at the press conference today, had the cap turned on. He's loose. He's had a terrible season. Okay. He's had a lot of home runs. Well, not a tremendous amount of home runs, but he's hit his fair share of home runs. This team did not bang the home runs I thought they were going to bang this year. And one of the reasons why is our first baseman had an awful year, Rowdy Tellez. That's why they had to go out and get Carlos Santana. But I think Willy Adames, he is my click in the postseason offensively. And you're going to have a couple of other guys step up. And someone's going to have themselves a series. Let's worry about the Dodgers once we get by Arizona. I saw Arizona, the Brewers open up at -200. I saw somewhere they're 175 favorites. And going into this game with Burns on the hill, they're like a 170, 175 favorite to win game one against Arizona. High odds. Would I lay those odds if I was a betting man with the Milwaukee Brewers? No, I wouldn't. That's just too high. A little lower, 130, 120, okay. 175 is just a little high for the Brewers in the postseason, to be honest with you. I wouldn't just don't go on. I'm not saying Arizona's going to win. Just don't bet on the game. That number is just too high, just not worth it. All right, that's going to do it for the show. We'll be here after the game on Tuesday night, a few hours after the game. I'll have to go cover the game. I'll be back here in the Locked On Brewers studio a few hours after the game, cutting the podcast. We'll drop it on our platforms and, of course, on YouTube. Again, YouTube. We're going to be here, guys. We're talking Brewers baseball. This postseason better not end on Wednesday night. We've come too far, 162 games, cheering the ups and downs of this baseball team. And here we are, waiting for wild card week. They've earned these home games. Let's hope it doesn't get down where they got to go to a third and deciding game on Thursday. Let's take care of these first two games. It's not going to be easy. Yelich said this today at the press conference. It's going to be some ups and downs, some mood swings. Everything's going to happen on this team. Wild swings. That's what happens in baseball postseason play. Some goofy things happen. And I'm sure we're going to see our fair share of it. But hopefully the Brewers are on the front side, and the baseball gods, for once, shining on the Milwaukee Brewers like they've never have done ever. We need the baseball gods more than ever. Most importantly, I need you guys. We're all in this together, and we will talk to you after the game, a few hours after the game on Tuesday night. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. So long, everybody.